Hey guys, what's going on? So really an exciting fight between Fury and Usyk. I thought it was a really impressive win by Usyk. And I think what's most surprising about this is that it almost looked like Tyson Fury had Usyk figured out towards the middle of the fight. He was really landing the bigger punches, especially a lot of those uppercuts. So it looked like he was on his way to really shifting the momentum in his favor permanently until Usyk really dug deep, really fought back, and landed some really crucial, sharp punches that looked like they really surprised and then eventually affected Fury for the rest of the fight, almost even stopping him at one point. So I think that's really what ultimately gave Usyk the decision, was that 10-8 round with that knockdown in round 9, because it still was an overall pretty close fight. Really, without that knockdown being scored, it's possible the fight could have ended in a draw, because you had one judge giving it to Usyk 115 to 112. The others split between, you had a 114-113 going to Fury and another 114-113 going to Usyk, giving him a split decision. So without that knockdown or the 10-8 round, it most likely would have just been a 10-9 round in Usyk's favor, but that would have been an extra point for Fury. So then both of those judges would have had the fight at 114-114, basically ending in a majority draw. So it was really such a critical moment in the fight, and it almost looked like Usyk could have even finished him had it gone a little bit longer, or he really knocked Fury down completely, or Fury didn't have the end of the round, pretty much getting saved by the bell. So now I think really this leaves a bunch of questions as to what's next for both fighters and ultimately the heavyweight division, because it looked like from the immediate post-fight interviews that Fury was pretty set on doing that immediate rematch. However, in the press conference after the fight, it seemed like he was a little bit more hesitant. So I think there's a little bit of uncertainty as to whether or not Fury wants to evoke his rematch clause right away, or maybe take some time off, get a few other maybe tune-up fights before running it back. But now, since we're a couple of days out from the fight, it does look like Fury's going to go ahead and revoke that rematch clause. This isn't necessarily certain though, but it looks like we're heading in that direction, and they're probably set on doing an October rematch in Saudi Arabia again. So I think this will definitely make for another exciting fight, and since it was ultimately a pretty close fight, I think it's definitely possible that Fury, with a little bit different of a strategy this time, could pull off a win in their second go at it. However, I will say I think it's really hard to bet against Usyk at this point, because he's really proven to be extremely consistent, especially after this victory. I don't know if Usyk has really ever had a bad performance, and he's really proved himself against now such a much bigger and really an elite fighter with Tyson Fury. So I think that's really why it's hard to say that this fight would go any differently again in the rematch. So Usyk's really proved himself over the years recently. You can say the same thing for both of his wins against Anthony Joshua. Fury has had some really great performances in the past too, but I think it's pretty safe to say by now that he's just a little bit more inconsistent. He probably did have a good camp for this fight and looked really good, especially towards the middle of the fight, but I think ultimately Usyk did show that he's the better fighter. But I still think it would be a close fight again in the rematch, and I think it would open a lot of doors regardless of the outcome, because on one hand, if Tyson Fury did win the rematch, you'd have a perfect trilogy set between these two, and I think the third fight would be just as exciting as the first two. And if Usyk won again, that would leave a perfect opportunity for Tyson Fury to then go and fight Anthony Joshua. That would be a huge fight, and the winner of that fight could potentially get another go at Usyk, since Usyk would have beaten both of them twice at this point. And Usyk, in the meantime, while Fury and Joshua were fighting, could face one of his mandatories, and then you could set up the third fight, whether it was Fury or Joshua having a third go at it. Could be another undisputed title fight. And it does look like, though, for the immediate rematch between Usyk and Fury, It doesn't look like that's going to be for the undisputed title again, because this upcoming fight in June between Dubois and Hrgovic, the winner of that will likely get the vacant IBF title. I will say I'm a little bit surprised by this, since Usyk recently beat Dubois before the Fury fight, but either way, he's probably eventually going to get stripped of his undisputed title, just because I think with 4 belts, it's really hard to unify the division and keep it that way. But it still was exciting that we got this with the fight that just happened with Usyk and Fury. So hopefully again in the future, Usyk is able to unify the belts. So I think the winner of that fight will likely be what's next for Usyk after the Fury and Usyk rematch, if again Usyk is able to win. But you also have someone like Parker who's really waiting to get in on the action. He could have to wait quite some time. For example, if Fury won the rematch, they might do the trilogy before getting someone like Parker in the action, or the winner of the Dubois Hrgovic. So a lot of these guys might have to wait. But I could eventually see a match between Parker and Usyk in the future if Usyk was able to still hold on to his belts. And you also have the upcoming fight between Wilder and Zhang in June, so the winner of that fight is also going to want to climb their way up the heavyweight ranks as well. So I think it's really an interesting time for the heavyweight division, and I think we're really in for a show, a lot of interesting fights to be made regardless of the outcome. But I think ultimately you really got to hand it to Alexander Usyk. Really an incredible performance from him. He was the undisputed champion at cruiserweight, really has now come up to heavyweight and taken over, and now is the undisputed heavyweight champion. So I think that's why he's the #1 pound for pound fighter after this performance. And I think even on top of that, the fact that he beat someone that had at least 30 pounds on him. So it's almost like Tyson Fury's in a league of his own. He's almost like a super heavyweight. So I really think that speaks to the skill and capability of Alexander Usyk. And it's definitely possible he now is able to dominate the heavyweight division for quite some time before he retires. But I'm still really looking forward to the rematch between Fury and Usyk if they do go ahead with it. So feel free to let me know your guys' thoughts on this. Appreciate you watching, and I'll see you later.